Hey there, ready to dive into the crazy ways our minds work? We're talking cognitive biases today, those mental shortcuts that can sometimes lead us to some questionable decisions. Ever bought something you didn't need just because it was next to a pricier option?
Yeah, that's the classic sign our brains are being predictably irrational. But the good news is, understanding those patterns can help us make better choices. We'll be using Dan O'Reilly's Predictably Irrational as our guide today.
Perfect. Early's a behavioral economist, right? So he kind of combines psychology and economics to explain why we do the things we do.
Exactly. He uses real-world examples and clever experiments to show just how susceptible we all are to these biases.
Okay, let's jump in. The first bias Early tackles is the power of relativity. He starts with an example about the Economist magazine subscriptions. Three options: internet only, and print and internet for the same price as print only.
Did you find yourself, gravitating towards that combined deal? It wouldn't be surprising. Airily found most people went for the combined option, even though the print only was a decoy to make the combined one seem like a steal.
Like they knew we can't resist a good deal, even if it means spending more.
Right. And this decoy effect highlights how relativity shapes our choices. We zero in on what's easy to compare, even if it means missing out on what we truly need.
So we should step back and think about what we actually value, not just the options in front of us.
Exactly. Don't let comparisons distract you from your own priorities.
This reminds me of Salvador Asale, the Pearl King. He took Tahitian black pearls, once undesirable, and put them next to diamonds and emeralds in a fancy storefront. Suddenly, everyone wanted those pearls.
That's using context to shape perception. By associating black pearls with luxury, he changed their value in people's minds.
Our brains make those associations automatically, even if they're not based on the object itself.
Right. It connects to imprinting, like Conrad Lorenz studied with goslings. They got attached to the first moving thing they saw, even if it wasn't their mom.
Wow, so those early experiences can shape preferences for years to come, even in animals.
It shows the power of first impressions, a kind of anchor for future comparisons.
Okay, speaking of anchors, Ariel did this experiment asking students to write down the last two digits of their social security numbers and then bid on things like wine.
And those with higher numbers ended up bidding way more for the same stuff.
So a random number can affect how much we're willing to pay.
It's the anchoring effect in action. Our brains latch onto that first bit of info, even if it's irrelevant, and use it as a reference point.
That's a little scary, like we're constantly being swayed without realizing it.
It's happening all the time, especially with money. Think about the first price you see for a product. That becomes your anchor.
So how do we break free from these anchors?
Awareness is step one. Recognize they exist and question your reactions. Do your research, compare prices, and don't let that first number you see control your decision.
Makes sense. Got to be more critical of the information we're given. Okay, on to the next bias. The allure of free. We all love free stuff, right?
Of course. But Airely's research shows the zero price effect. That free e-label triggers an emotional response that can override logic.
You mean like choosing something free even if we'd actually prefer a different option if we had to pay?
Exactly. Think about the experiment where people chose Hershey's Kisses over Lindt truffles when the kisses were free, even though they liked the truffles more. That fear of missing out on something free can really mess with our judgment.
Oh, I've totally fallen for that. Like those buy one, get one free deals where I end up with something I don't even need just because it felt like such a good deal.
We've all been there, and marketers know this. They use free to entice us even when the overall cost isn't actually a bargain.
So be wary of those free sirens. It might not be the steal we think it is. Speaking of bargains, how do social norms fit into this whole decision-making puzzle?
That's where things get interesting. Bringing money into situations governed by social norms can seriously backfire.
Oh, like offering to pay your mother-in-law for Thanksgiving dinner? Probably not a good idea.
Definitely not. It creates this weirdness because you're putting a price tag on something that's supposed to be about love and generosity.
Like saying, I don't value your effort enough to just accept it. Ouch.
Right. Airely found that even a small payment can make people less willing to help, compared to just asking or offering a gift.
There was that experiment where people were less willing to help unload a sofa if offered a small payment, right?
Exactly. The money changed the whole thing, made it a transaction instead of a favor.
Sometimes it's better to just stick with social norms of kindness and leave money out of it. But are there times when market norms, like money, can be effective? like in a business setting.
Absolutely. Businesses often try to create a sense of community among employees to boost morale and productivity.
Like a work family, where people feel valued and want to go the extra mile, not just for the paycheck, but for a sense of belonging.
Exactly. It's tapping into those social norms of cooperation and shared goals. But companies got to be careful not to send mixed messages. If they emphasize community but then implement harsh cost cutting, it can erode trust.
Actions speak louder than words, right? Especially with social norms.
Aligning actions with values is crucial for building a strong and ethical environment.
Good point to remember for all of us, not just in the workplace. Okay, so we've covered relativity, anchors, freebies, and social norms. What's next on our deep dive into irrationality?
Let's tackle procrastination, something I'm sure we all struggle with. We'll explore how understanding our tendency to put things off can help us develop strategies to overcome it.
Ooh, I definitely need help with that. I'm the queen of procrastination.
Don't worry, you're not alone. Ariely offers some great insights into outsmarting our procrastinating selves.
I'm all ears. Tell me everything.
One of the best strategies is pre-commitment, setting up systems that help us fight temptation and stay on track.
Like those students who chose their own paper deadlines. The ones who spread them out did better overall, right?
Exactly. They use their future selves to outsmart their present selves, knowing procrastination would take over.
Tricking your brain into doing the right thing. Any other examples of that pre-commitment thing?
Think about a Honda maintenance schedule. Bundling services at intervals takes the guesswork out, makes it easier to stay on top of it.
That's brilliant. Never thought of it that way, but it makes sense. No chance to procrastinate.
Right. What about finances? Pre-commitment could help with saving or spending too.
Oh, for sure. Like, could it help prevent those impulse buys?
Absolutely. Airily even suggested a self-control credit card. You'd set limits or even block certain types of purchases.
Ooh, a financial guardian angel on your shoulder, stopping you from splurging.
Exactly. Recognizing weaknesses and putting safeguards in place to reach those goals.
Love that. Okay, pre-commitment check. What other fascinating insights does Airly have?
Get ready for this one. We're not always the rational, consistent people we think we are.
Uh-oh, this sounds interesting. Go on.
Our decisions can change drastically depending on, our emotional state.
Okay, now I'm intrigued. Tell me more.
Airely's research on arousal is really interesting. People's preferences, even moral boundaries, they shift a lot when they're aroused.
Whoa, so like a Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde thing in our own minds.
Exactly. Hot emotional states lead us to choices our cold, rational selves wouldn't even consider.
Makes sense, but also kind of scary. How do we reconcile those two sides?
$1 million question. Airely says awareness is the first step. Recognizing emotions influence decisions. We can anticipate those heated moments and plan accordingly.
So if you know you overspend when stressed, avoid them all on a bad day.
Exactly. Know your triggers, manage those emotional responses.
A game plan for our own irrationality. Love it.
Being proactive, not reactive.
Yeah.
Let's shift gears now. Explore how expectations shape our experiences, even like physical sensations.
The placebo effect. Always found that fascinating, how our beliefs can impact our bodies.
It's powerful, the mind-body connection. A great example is a study on arthroscopic knee surgery.
Knee surgery. What happened?
They divided patients with osteoarthritis into 3 groups. One got standard surgery, another had their knee joint washed out, the third got a placebo surgery.
Wait, a placebo surgery? What does that even mean?
They went through the whole thing, incisions, anesthesia, everything, but no actual procedure was done.
Wow, that's crazy. So the placebo group didn't get the same results, right?
Actually, all 3 groups, even the placebo one, reported less pain and better mobility after.
No way. A fake surgery made them feel as good as the real one.
Yep. This and other studies show the power of expectations. Our beliefs affect how we perceive pain, even physical healing.
Brains tricking our bodies. But how does that placebo effect work? Is it all just psychological?
Well, the exact way it works is still being studied, but research suggests when we expect a positive outcome, our brains release endorphins, those feel-good chemicals.
So it's not just in our heads, there's real biology happening.
Exactly. Thoughts trigger changes in our bodies. It shows how interconnected mind and body truly are.
This is mind-blowing. The power our beliefs have on our experiences. But let's move on from expectations and talk about honesty. Airely's work on that was fascinating.
You mean the strange honesty of cash? We're more likely to be dishonest when rewards aren't actual money.
Right. Our moral compass gets fuzzy when we're not dealing with cash directly.
Remember that experiment where people stole more Coke cans than dollar bills? Same value, but the physical form of the reward mattered.
Yeah. It's like our brains have a harder time justifying stealing actual cash. It feels more real.
That distance from cash is what fuels a lot of dishonesty, Early argues, from little thefts to big corporate scandals. Easier to fudge numbers than take money from a wallet.
Makes sense. The more abstract the reward, the easier to ignore the morality of it.
And this is important today with so many digital transactions. How do we stay morally responsible in a cashless world?
Almost like we need to make those digital transactions feel more real.
Hmm.
Remember, there are actual people behind those numbers.
Good point. Maybe having tangible reminders of the value being exchanged could help with that.
Interesting. Small changes in our environment or how info is presented could really affect behavior.
Absolutely. Airily found even little cues, like signing an honor code or remembering the Ten Commandments, reduce cheating.
Seriously. Just thinking about ethics makes us more honest. Seems too easy.
It's simple but effective. Those reminders activate our conscience, make us think about consequences,
Priming our brains for ethical behavior? Interesting.
bringing that moral compass into focus, less likely to stray from honesty.
Good to know. So, if we're all prone to these biases, how do we create systems that encourage ethical behavior, especially in business, where those temptations are strong?
Airily says transparency and accountability are key. Companies need a culture where ethical behavior is expected and rewarded.
Not just a code of ethics on the wall, you got to actually live it.
Right, and it starts at the top. Ethical leadership sets the tone for everyone.
Creating a culture where honesty and integrity are valued in actions, not just words.
Exactly. Fostering shared responsibility and commitment to ethics throughout the company.
This has been so insightful, making me rethink my own choices. What's the key takeaway from all this? The big aha moment.
The takeaway is we're all predictably irrational. But the good news, by understanding these biases, we can start making more rational, ethical choices.
I love that.
Yeah.
We're not doomed by these quirks. We can outsmart them.
That's the beauty of behavioral economics. It gives us tools for better decisions, more fulfilling lives.
This deep dive into irrationality has been amazing. From relativity and anchors to placebo effects and the honesty of cash. Before we wrap up, any final provocative thought for our listener? Something to ponder as they navigate their own decision-making.
What if I told you there's this hidden force shaping our choices, something as subtle as the order we see options in?
Okay, now you've got me curious.
Think about being in a restaurant with friends. Did you ever notice how people's orders kind of cluster around the same dishes?
Now that you mention it. Yeah, one time, everyone at our table ended up getting pasta, even though we all had different ideas at first.
That's herding behavior. We're influenced by what others around us choose, especially when we're not sure what the best option is.
Like we look to others for clues, right? Everyone's getting pasta, it must be good.
Exactly. We trust the group's wisdom, even if it means ignoring what we'd normally pick.
But what if the first person to order just happened to be in the mood for pasta? What if there was something better on the menu?
That's the risk. We might end up with a not-so-great choice just because we followed the crowd.
So how do we avoid this herd mentality? Make sure we're choosing what we really want.
Awareness is key. Recognize that this herding behavior exists and then, question your own choices. Make sure they really fit what you want.
Like, take a step back and ask, do I want this or am I just going with the flow?
Exactly. Assert your own individuality. Make choices that are truly you.
This makes me think about all those times I ordered something at a restaurant just because everyone else was a bit of, not in other parts of life too,
Yeah.
not just food.
Oh, absolutely. It affects everything. Investments, political views, you name it. We're constantly bombarded with info and opinions, easy to get swept up in what's trending.
So in this world of information overload, how do we make sure we're not just blindly following the herd?
Critical thinking is crucial. Question your assumptions. Look for different perspectives. Make decisions based on solid evidence and logic, not just what's popular.
Be informed. Think for yourself. Be the leader of your own life, not a follower.
That's the ultimate goal of understanding these biases, empowering ourselves to make the best choices.
This has been an amazing deep dive into irrationality. Learned so much about our brains and how to overcome those biases for better decision-making.
It's not about being perfectly rational, but being aware of our thinking patterns and making choices that fit our values.
So any final thought-provoking idea for our listener? Something to mull over as they navigate their own choices.
What if the key isn't getting rid of irrationality, but using it for good? What if understanding our biases helps us nudge ourselves and others towards positive outcomes? Something to think about.
That's a brilliant note to end on. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into Predictably Irrational. Until next time, remember to stay curious, question everything, and embrace the irrationality that makes us human.